recorded, but we'll be recording the two speakers if that's okay with everybody. And we are also going to run some polls. So there's two polls that we're going to do to start with, and Alana is going to help me by putting them up. So the first one should be on your screens now, is how old are you? And if everyone can just choose that, that'd be great. Perfect. And then there is a second one. Oh, here's the results for how old we are. So we've got a good mix, which is great. And then there's a second poll, which is more focused on today. So about business and community ideas. And we'll just show the results once everybody's done that. And hello to anybody that's just joined us. So we've got quite a good mix, which is brilliant. I'm sure everyone here will benefit from today's session. That is everything from me. I will let Annabel take over and introduce you to our speakers and what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, hi everyone. It's fantastic to see you all here. I, as Laura said, work for Untitled Scotland, and a key part of my work prior to COVID was promoting careers in the land-based sector all across Scotland, speaking to young people. I'm also a member of Baxter ABS, which is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, club in young farmers in Scotland, and I've been a member of that for over 10 years. And I'm not from a farming background, which comes as a surprise to many people, even some members, which is a bit concerning. I also attended the first Ideas Festival back in 2018, and it's been fantastic to see how the Rural Youth Project has developed over that time into this fantastic initiative. So without further ado, just a bit of housekeeping, just to remind people to keep the microphones off unless they're speaking. And I would first like to introduce Luke. Luke has worked as a countryside ranger for the past 4 years. He's passionate about the countryside and getting people outdoors and exploring nature. He's also a Lantra industry champion, so I've had the pleasure of working with him for the last couple of years. And having attended last year's Rural Youth Project Ideas Festival, Luke had the idea of setting up a podcast called The Rambling Ranger, and make sure you check that out after this session. So over to you, Luke.
Yeah, thank you, Annabel. So as Annabel said, been involved with the Rural Youth Project since last year, and that was kind of off the back of becoming an industry champion with Lantra Scotland. I've been a countryside ranger, which is a job not many people have heard of, for the last 4 years, and that was with my local authority in West Lothian, so the central belt of Scotland. I'm 20 years old, so I left school when I was 16, and that was in pursuit of essentially going to college and then working my way to becoming a ranger. I was very fortunate to end up with an apprenticeship opportunity with the local authority, which led me on a 3-year kind of journey up until last year, working as a countryside ranger. Last year, I left full-time. I had the opportunity to stay on with the local authority, but I decided I wanted to branch out, take up new opportunities, and continue my work with organisations such as Lantra Scotland. And it was, I think, through Annabel and through the Lantra that I was fortunate enough at the Highland Show last year to meet Jane Craigie, who's the co-founder alongside Rebecca with the Rural Youth Project. So it's a very interesting conversation that we had, came up with lots of ideas and sparked a few between us. And as a result of that, I found out about the Ideas Festivals that the Rural Youth Project hosted for the last 2 years. The Rural Youth Project Ideas Festival 2019 was the first Rural Youth Project engagement that I'd had. My expectations and things going into it, it was all new for me. Having left school at 16, the last kind of residentials and things that I'd ever done were all school orientated. So it was quite interesting to well, being a ranger, you get the opportunities to network with other rangers and people within your own industry, but likewise with Lantra, it opened up new opportunities to engage with people in other industries that I'd necessarily not had the opportunity to do before. So I'm attending the Rural Youth Project Ideas Festival. I got the opportunity to meet all the other Festival attendees and delegates that were there, and also a lot of fantastic speakers. It was a very unusual and, well, for me anyway, environment to be surrounded by so many individually unique people. Normally, I think you often go along to these things, or you think there's going to be a few people that stand out, but no, everyone was very unique and individual in their own ways, and certainly a lot of the industries and other businesses and jobs that people were in I found very interesting, and were very valuable to me learning about. And then so kind of taking away from that, after hearing these fantastic speakers and all these great ideas being thrown out there, it kind of got me thinking a lot about my own profession and my own job, which I hadn't really done before. I kind of had the idea that I wanted to be a ranger, and that was about it. There wasn't anything really much after that. So that got me thinking, certainly after the Ideas Festival and well, the end of last year and then into this year, it was thinking about, well, all these ideas and things people were talking about and being very passionate about, what are my passions and things that I want to pursue. And some of these things originally, like working abroad and internationally, kind of seemed out of my reach or grasp, but after hearing about these other people's stories, that actually seemed pretty trivial, or seemed pretty well, more doable than what I had first assumed. So I started hacking away at these smaller ideas, such as rangers in other countries, and getting in contact with a few of them, alongside working with other rangers in my own country and finding out more about their jobs and how they connect with other industries. So likes of talking to a lot of young farmers and young foresters, finding out how ranger connects into a lot of these other industries. And kind of off the back of that, I was working still alongside the Rural Youth Project and Lantra, kind of getting through a lot of careers fairs and things like that, what a ranger is and what I do. And it was during March, we obviously got hit with the pandemic, and that kind of put all these these other engagement things with a lot of these projects to a standstill. So everyone was kind of, I think, put back to step one again. All these plans and things that people had put in place, you kind of had to rethink what you were doing. So it gave me a lot of thought, lockdown. I took lockdown as a good thing, a good opportunity to again think about all these ideas and things that I had first got from the Ideas Festival. And one of those things was of course the podcast. So the podcast was kind of an idea that came off the back of all about me wanting to get what I do out there, essentially. And through the likes of the Rural Youth Project's ideas, of course, the very own podcast was talking to other people with inspirational stories. And for me, I was being asked a lot to do vlogs and content for these organizations and projects. And I really struggled. Certainly, I'm not that great a writer, but I can certainly write better than I can talk in front of a camera. So I was trying to find a way that I could speak to other people in a kind of a different format, or a format I hadn't considered before, and that opened up the opportunity for a podcast. I'd watched podcasts before. I wasn't that podcast savvy, but through the likes of the Rural Youth Projects and Lantras, I kind of got an understanding of this is actually something that I could do myself, and that kind of sparked the idea of hosting my own podcast that was oriented around rangers. Having worked over the last 3 years with a ranger service, and having met, very much like my experience with the Ideas Festival, so many different unique and interesting people, I thought this podcast would be a great idea to recap, capture stories, and just have the opportunity to talk again to a lot of these people that I'd met over the last 3 years, and find out why they actually became a ranger in the first place, some of their drives, their ideas and their inspirations. And a podcast was a great platform to share that with other people as well, be that in the industry or my own ranger, environmental conservation, etc., but also with other industries, and kind of share what we do out there with them. The kind of planning and the kind of how I pulled that all together, it was it's one of those thoughts in the middle of the night, probably at 2 o'clock, and then by 4 o'clock in the morning, it kind of is a fully fledged idea. It's very much how a lot of my thoughts and ideas come together, funnily enough, are in the very late evenings. And I kind of then got an idea of what I actually needed to do from that. So be that branding and creating logos and designs, and that came all very naturally through a bit of experience that I had with the Real Youth Project, but also I think just my creativity side. Of course, the Rambling Ranger podcast was the title that I came up with. I don't know how, it just kind of came to be. And from there, kind of everything was, I think it was about the end of April, I had this idea and I started rolling with it. So from there, I started to think about the sort of guests and people that I wanted on, the equipment and things that I would need to use. So I had originally, I think the first episode I did on my phone, which was terrible. And I decided very quickly that wasn't going to be the case and how I was going to do it going forward. So, I mean, everyone's kind of discovered and came used to working with likes of Zoom and other digital virtual meeting platforms. So Zoom was a great opportunity after discovering that obviously the record feature is a thing, that I could use that for the time being. And from there, I just, started using that. In regards to my guests, I wanted to kind of mix it up. I didn't want it all to be Rangers to begin with. There was so many people that weren't Rangers that I also wanted to speak to. So I think my first guest was one of my role models, and also a kind of a influencer online as well within the Ranger and walking community, Ben Dolphin. And he was a former colleague of mine, and I thought it would be a great first guest, and he certainly was. But my second guest was Jane Craigie, the person that kind of kicked off this idea and kind of led me into the Real Youth Project and got me thinking about a lot of things that I wanted to do with my work. So again, another great guest and person that I wanted to bring on and I suppose share with others and capture that first initial conversation we had and be able to share it with other people. And from there, again, I just had planned other guests from Rangers to other people I'd met through projects, Annabel, of course, through the Lantra organization, the Lantra project, and yeah, just all these other really interesting people. And what I've achieved so far, well, I mean, I was doing it on a weekly basis through lockdown. I was contacting people, getting in touch, recording one week, then putting it out there the other. So over the course of 10 weeks, I'd already had and finished 10 episodes. And it got me thinking after that, as fun as that was, it was certainly lockdown had kind of came to an end. I had got back into work and I wasn't going to be able to keep that up. So again, it's given me a lot more to think about and how I want to take the podcast forward in the future. And I've certainly been doing that. So I started thinking about how I wanted to record going forward, be that every month, or do I want to do it, record and then publish them all at one time, and other ideas such as, again, guests again, who I want to get on in the future. So I've been slowly working through that. Work's kind of put everything to a bit of a standstill, but again, it's given me a real opportunity, and I think it's given me a real amount of time to play with. I mean, I'm wanting to continue this podcast on for as far as I'm content, I suppose, as far as I'm able to speak to more and more people, be that I'm kind of just in my own bubble just now of people I already know, but I'm hoping to branch out to new people as well. It's opened up a lot of opportunities for me. I mentioned about the international and abroad scene, and I was able to talk to 2 international guests on my first podcast, which were 2 Rangers from America, from North Carolina to be specific. Now, if I had told myself that I'd be talking to Rangers abroad and almost like pen pals last year, I wouldn't have believed myself, but I kind of just what simple emails can do and how far you can go with that got me in touch with these fantastic people that have their very own podcasts as well, talking about similar things, Ranger related, and they're on the other side of the world essentially. And yeah, they were fantastic guests, and we're in touch now, in contact. And from that, we're even thinking about starting to do things in the future together as well. So it's really, as a result of essentially the Ideas Festival, it gave me the courage and almost aspirations, things to work towards, which I'm very much a work-driven person, and it was able to make something of my work, and again, from an influencer's point of view, give me a platform to be able to have a voice and share with other people. And essentially what I want to capture and achieve from that is to create a legacy of people that I've met, capture the projects, the everyday life, and just inspiration in general that for these people that deserve to be accredited. I think that pretty much captures everything. I know I talk very fast, and I may have missed bits in between them, but I'm going to hand it back to Annabel just now, and then yeah, if anyone has any questions later, feel free to ask.
That's fantastic, Luke, and thank you very much. It's great to see how it's gone from initial idea to reality, and how successful it's been, so congratulations on that. And just to say that there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of our second speaker. You can either ask using your microphone, or you can also put it in the chat, or ask Alana or Rebecca directly if you'd rather remain anonymous. So over to our second speaker, who is Treasa from Cape Clear in Southern Ireland. She also attended last year's Ideas Festival with the idea to boost tourism and industry on her home island. She recently started up Cape Clear Farmers Market, and be sure to give her a follow on social media, and I'll hand over to Treasa now.
Hi, I'll just share my screen. Sorry. There you go. So my name's Treasa ní Cheadagain or Cheadagain, depending if you want it in Irish or English. And I am one of the co-founders of the Cape Clear's Farmers Market. I'm also a climate ambassador, which is a programme supported by the Irish government. And I have just started my 4th year studying international development in UCC, in University College Cork. So to start my journey about how the Ideas Festival led to the Farmers Market, to give you an idea of where I am, I'm down in right at the bottom in Cape Clear Island, and about 700 kilometres up the road was Whiston Lodge, where the idea first came about. And the other picture is a picture of the harbour in Cape Clear. So to paint a bit of a picture, Cape Clear is a really small island with about a population of 120. And its main industry is tourism. It's also a Gaeltacht island, which means that we speak Irish and English, like both Irish and English languages, equally. So I was brought up with both languages. And that is where the idea first came from. So initially, at the start of the Ideas Festival, I had told Laura a casual, funny story about how I had decided 2 years ago or last summer that I wanted to get takeaway to the island, because we obviously can't get fast food, and I was always jealous of my cousins or my friends on the mainland who could just get fast food whenever they wanted. So the orange boat is a picture of the fast ferry. So it came in about 2 years ago, and it cut the journey between the mainland and Cape down from 50 minutes to 25 minutes. And if anyone who lives on an island or commutes to an island knows how amazing that is, to be able to cut your journey in half. And me being me, I decided I would get takeaway delivered to the boat and brought over. The lads on the boat picked it up for me and brought it over, and I picked it up on the pier on the other side. So the power of that small story led to the idea of some sort of a food market. When we took part in an ideas generator at the festival, and it was one of the activities during the weekend, and someone thought of the idea of bringing somehow a food festival, or having maybe like a one-off pop-up market or something. So I went home from the market, or went home from the Ideas Festival, not really thinking much more of it, thought it was a great idea. And then COVID hit, because I was supposed to go on placement to Vietnam for 5 months. I had an internship there, but obviously all that got cancelled. So I was at home for 6 months, and I was trying to figure out a way to buy more of my shopping in Cape, because we get our food delivered on the ferry. The supermarket delivered down to the boat for us every couple of times a week, depending what you want. And I was trying to figure out a way. I was like, we could definitely get half of our weekly shop in Cape, from meat to salads, veg, eggs, that kind of thing. So I got in contact with Judy, the woman in the red top there, who is the local development officer for the West Cork Islands. And we kind of thought up an idea of somehow creating a market, or a place where people could sell food. And we got in contact with Fiona as well, who's a local farmer, and the three of us kind of worked away on a little project. It started back in May, the idea, and we slowly started having meetings. Originally it was on Zoom, because we weren't allowed to meet up outside of your household, and then we started meeting down in the harbour, out in the open and stuff, because once the restrictions started slowly lifting. And in the end, it came out that we started the farmers market, but we sent out a survey to everyone, which is here, around the island. So initially the roadmap, the Irish government released a roadmap for reopening the country that started in June, but the offshore islands weren't supposed to open until the 10th of August, and tourism being our biggest industry meant that was a huge hit to majority of families and households in Cape Clear, because between tourism and there's an Irish college, which is it's like a summer camp for secondary school children, they all come in, so that's hundreds of people coming into the island every year. But with that cancelled, we sent out a survey to see would people be interested in this as another form of income. So I sent out 4 different types of surveys. So there was emails and through the island WhatsApp, through the community text, and then we had paper versions available down in the co-op. And 80% of households replied to our survey, and the 33 who answered, 19 were interested in buying Cape Clear produce weekly. And then with the survey, it kind of picked our location, which was the harbour, the time, the day, so it was quite handy in that sense. So also living in a small community, there's quite a lot of opinions, so democracy played a huge part here. So if anyone came back and told us we picked the wrong day, the wrong time, the wrong anything, we were like, well, it was all done in a survey, so if you didn't have your vote, you've nothing to say, which worked very handy over the summer when people were having their opinions. So with all that done in June, we had our very first farmers market on the 8th of July. So that's a really nice picture of majority of the suppliers, and you can see like a lot of the produce there. So it's the very first market ever to be on Cape of any kind, and all the produce supplied at the market and sold at the market is all created or made on Cape, which is very cool. So you have everything from like wool products, there's some more pictures there, you've like crafts, you've meat, veg, honey, there's a stall with like eco products, sustainable products, all sorts of things. And there's about 10 stalls all up, and obviously it ranges from like week to week with people coming and going. But it has been a huge success, both economically for the island and socially. So obviously a lot of these people wouldn't have had the opportunity to sell their products because, well, there was supposed to be no tourists. But then obviously as it opened up, we did have tourists coming in. But it was just a fantastic opportunity for smaller suppliers to see, because a lot of them wouldn't be selling to shops or anything. They're not that big. But also socially, it was a fantastic opportunity for people to meet on Cape, because once the pubs closed, that's a huge social outlet for people, and especially for like the older kind of generation who come out and they like meet in the pub and stuff. It's kind of just like a social aspect, a massive social aspect of living in a small rural area. But we did give free teas and coffees to people to encourage people coming down. So we got a bit of funding to do that, which was fantastic because people were really impressed, because they were getting free teas and coffees and it made them hang around and buy more stuff. And so that was a really nice kind of token as a gesture to like invite people and to thank people for supporting the market. And then we did a lot of promotions. So we obviously had our poster, we have our social media, and a lot of companies helped us with promotions, like the ferry company have been amazing. It's actually quite nice to see once you start something small how everyone gets together. So we had like the national radio come in and interviewed a few of us. We've had loads of businesses around West Cork promoting it, which has been quite nice and positive effect from it. But in the end, the lessons learned from the market, because this was my first time ever working with the community as like an organizer in a project. I've worked as like volunteering or doing bits and bobs, but I think my innocence played a massive role, because when I started with the idea, I couldn't see a problem where a lot of others could, so that was really good. Also communications was a huge one for me, because I wouldn't be the biggest, like the most active person on social media, but I've had to do the Facebook, the Instagram, and then you have to keep in contact with both the suppliers through, we have a WhatsApp with them, and then you have customers through social media, and the organisers with the two other organisers, Judy and Fiona, have been a big one. And then also the aspect of living on an island, again, the ferry. We've had to keep in constant contact with them for the weather, the numbers coming in, because you'd have to obviously tell the suppliers what the numbers are due, because they'd have to either make or bring down more stock or less stock. So that's been a really big one. And then teamwork, obviously, has just been constant throughout the whole thing. And my patience, again, small island, small community, opinionated people, have a lot to say sometimes. So my patience was was mastered throughout the whole thing. But the highlights have been fantastic. So obviously being interviewed on the radio was a really big achievement for me. I was really impressed that they came the whole way down. And then seeing people come to the market, especially the older people, I was really humbled that they did come down and enjoyed it. And just watching it grow, because we already have plans for next year to move the location, because it was good, but we prefer a more central location, and the plans for hopefully a Christmas market if we don't get another shutdown, and just seeing it grow and seeing how positive all the suppliers were, and that they're kind of taking a lot of roles up now as well in the organising of it for next year. And then obviously being here, being invited to do the Ideas Café was really nice, and I'm delighted to be here. And that's, sorry, thank you for listening. I hope I remembered everything. And if you have any questions, I think they're doing the Q&A next. So I'll stop sharing.
Well, thank you very much, Treasa. I thought that was again a really inspiring story, and seeing something go from initial idea to reality, and it's obviously been a fantastic success, and congratulations on that, because there's no doubt a lot of hard work has gone into that, and how it's brought the community together, so really well done on that. So now it's your guys' opportunity to ask questions. Again, if you want to ask by mic, that's fantastic, or you can also ask via the chat function. If you want, just raise your hand or you can use the thumbs up to ask a question, I think, or is there another option, Laura, for raising a hand?
I think it's mainly the thumbs up one. That's what I used last time.
Yeah. Okay, so
you've covered everything.
Okay. So that's just in the reactions. If you click on reactions, a thumbs up, or again, you can ask in the chat function.
I'll kick off if everybody's shy and waiting to go. It's for both Luke and Treasa. What was the most difficult thing of launching your idea and taking it to delivery, and what was the thing that you found most surprising? So the easiest thing, or the thing that you found gave you the most help?
Will I go first? I think the hardest thing for me was people's opinions. I was quite surprised how I was trying to do something good and something nice, and people still had something negative to say. So it's that lesson of you just have to part it and just try your best to absolutely ignore them. And then the easiest thing, or I don't really know what the easiest thing was, probably getting support from the local development officer was probably the nicest and thing that I've learned the most from. Like, she was amazing throughout the whole thing, because she was just teaching me so much stuff, and like that, how to deal with situations and everything. So that was probably the easiest, and how to get like funding and stuff through her. Like, she just knew everything in that sense, for local community development. So that was probably the easiest thing to find, was just her.
I think for me, it would have been the most difficult thing for me was confidence, because the idea came about to do a podcast based off of not being the most vlog savvy. Again, I'd much rather write and get all my thoughts out there and be able to double check it. But as soon as you throw a camera in front of me, there's not a person on the other side. I don't know, I just freeze up. So the podcast obviously allowed me to speak to other people, and it became a lot more natural for me, which again, the easiest thing, or the thing that surprised me the most, was me doing it on a weekly basis, which now thinking back was a bit crazy. Although we were in lockdown, so nobody really had an excuse to say they were busy. But most people that I was asking to do the podcasts were available the next week or within a week of me doing them. So I was able to do a very consistent podcast every week, which was able to help for the people that were interested in listening for it as well, because they knew exactly when I was going to be putting one out, etc.
That's fantastic. Melissa did have a thumbs up if you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, I don't know if I took it off or if it went off by itself. It's for Treasa. I think it's really great what you've done. In a previous role, I was involved in food and gift fairs, so very much know all of the issues you're talking about and the sort of things you've got to deal with. I was wondering, it might be different because it was such a small community project, but if you had issues with managing the expectations of the suppliers, because certainly the food and gift fairs I worked on, some of the suppliers, if it perhaps wasn't as busy as they thought it was going to be, or if they didn't sell as much as they perhaps wanted to, they could become quite difficult to deal with, making themselves quite vocal during the day or at the end of the day. So I'm wondering if you came across anything like that.
Yeah, at the start it was kind of fun because no one had expectations, because no one had ever done it. Mm-hmm. But by like midsummer, kind of like August, they were nitpicking kind of at like what day it was, what time it was, and that was fair enough. But like yeah, we did come across quite a bit of that, especially towards the end of the summer, where it was like they were like, we just need to sell as much as we possibly can now. Mm-hmm. And we had like, I think 2 or 3 weeks of like double markets. So we had one during the week and then one on like Saturday or Sunday, depending on the boat, like how busy the boat was and stuff. So that was kind of how we got around it. And they kind of ran the extra markets because we were like, we're already doing one. Like I wasn't selling anything, I was only organizing and stuff. So they kind of ran the second ones. But yeah, we did have that expectations and people kind of opinionating that it wasn't as good as we expected. And I'm like, I can't change that. I can't shut people in. You probably had it yourself if you've done it. Yeah, people still have the same opinions in a small area, I think. But yeah, the way we got around it was just kind of leaving it up to them to the second day if they really wanted to, and to do more advertising themselves if they weren't fully happy with it.
Yeah. Because I think that was the big thing, that as the host, venue or organizer, it's some suppliers, the onus, they think the onus is really on you to be basically selling it for them, where they could have the best products in the world, but if they don't really tell anybody they're going to be at the fair or do anything about it. Did you charge them to have a stall?
No, we didn't, because it was on the co-op land. So obviously the co-op were like kind of helping us with organizing and giving us permission to do things. So thankfully, because it goes under their kind of remit, we didn't have to charge. But like they're looking into somewhere different for next year, so we may have to charge depending on where we want to go. For like insurance purposes and things, we got that all covered by the co-op. Like I think when you're doing something like this, people don't realize how much work goes in the background.
Oh yeah.
Like, we organized the like the license, we'd organized the like they didn't have to pay for insurance or anything, just had to turn up. And they were like, but we don't like this place. And you're like, oh. You're like, I'm not going to change it.
Yeah.
You're like, if you want to move, you look into all this stuff. So hopefully we won't have to charge, but I don't know. Depends what they want for next year.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd say that's a great opportunity for them as suppliers for it to be free, because I would say 99% of other markets you do have to pay some sort of stall fee or whatever to take part.
Yeah, because we've been to other ones around the area and they all charged, and they all had huge rules and everything, but we were quite relaxed for the first year.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's me, thank you.
Sophie has got some questions, but she's just had to hop off for a minute. If anyone else doesn't have a question at the moment, Alana.
Thank you. I guess to Treasa, in terms of governance going forward, I know it's in its like fledgling stage, but do you, and I guess your organising committee, do you kind of see like moving towards more formalising it into like a membership base? I know you don't charge at the moment, but in terms of governance, what do you kind of hope for the future? I know when it's a small idea, it can be just like ready to go straight off the guns, and you guys have done so well during COVID, but I guess in the future, what do you think the plans are? And same for Luke as well, like what do you see in the future for this podcast? Are you going to keep doing a couple of different series, or what is your future direction for both?
So for us, for the future, we have gotten onto like the county council about formalising it as a market, and maybe taking it like away from the co-op a bit more. So that's like currently being researched about what to do with that. But we still don't know about how formal we're going to go with it. I'd say once we get the license, like we don't, like our committee is still kind of like, because it's small enough, when we have meetings, we have like, well, if all the suppliers can come, we'll have all the suppliers. So it's suppliers have quite a lot to do with it. Like they don't, like it's no decision is made without them, which I suppose is good for them. But yeah, so far it's just trying to find looking into other locations and finalising the license for the market, and we'll see then from there.
I suppose I'm just trying to, going forward, make the podcast a bit more, I suppose, professional in a sense. But SCRA, so the Scottish Countryside Rangers Association, are an organisation in Scotland that act as they're a charity, but they act as like a hub for networking and further development for rangers in Scotland. And we're facing very difficult times just now with organisations cutting ranger positions and essentially us losing funding within our industry, within our sector. So now is a really big political time for SCRA and for rangers in the country. And I think I see myself as SCRA are now starting to become more social media aware and how they use it. We're just all volunteers ourselves. We can only do as much as the members that we have. So we're just in this phase of just trying to be a forefront for rangers in Scotland and be in the eyes of politicians and political people. So the podcast in many regards can act as a way of capturing these stories and being a more interesting and piece of evidence that can be shown towards, I suppose, people that may be interested in rangers at a more, I don't know, official or government level or whatnot, for just again that a bit of awareness. But I see it as more of a better outlet for education rather than these government and political people will be thrown documents and pieces of writing all the time, but as soon as you put something a bit more different, I feel like it catches their eye more and enables to get a different sort of message or a clearer message across to them. So I suppose that's kind of where I'm wanting to go. SCRA are very interested in backing me and my podcast endeavours and investing in it to a degree, and hopefully I'll get a lot out of that, which I'm very fortunate for, of course.
That's fantastic. I've got a couple of questions in the chat. So the first from Katie, thank you. After the Ideas Café, did you have much communication with the Rural Youth Project? Were they able to provide support and advice through the process, or did you find once you had the idea you were able to take things into your own hands? That's both Treasa and Luke.
I can start off this time if you want. So I actually followed up with the Rural Youth Project. It was Alana, actually, I think, was my main port of contact, because I was interested in going forward, I suppose, the social media side of it, being new to social media as of last year. I wasn't your typical teenager, I suppose, that grew up with Facebook and other platforms. So I kind of joined it to put my industry and my job out there last year. So I was becoming better at using Instagram, Facebook, and now Twitter as well. And I was very interested in how Alana's role as a project coordinator worked and how her role in the Rural Youth Project kind of functioned. So I was interested in the behind the scenes, let's say, and as a result, just before lockdown, I was able to go out and do a few interviews and things like with Melissa in South Lanarkshire, and get an idea of how to capture content essentially. And as a result of that, I did a week's work experience literally the week before we went into full lockdown. And it was a great opportunity, and it was kind of gave me that confidence boost to really decide that a podcast and kind of this is what I wanted to do, and also kind of made my social media skills, I suppose, a bit better. But it's also, I suppose, got me thinking about other jobs and how my role can fit into other kind of businesses and things as well.
So for me, after the Ideas Festival, when the idea initially kind of came about, I don't think I was really in much contact with the rural youth after that, until I was kind of emailing Alana, I think I kept you up to date a few times once we sent out the survey and things. I think because I had the local development officer on Cape Clear with me, it was a lot easier, so I could just contact her, and I knew her anyway before, like previous to the market. So I think that helped me a lot that I had her. I'd say if I didn't, he would have been plagued by me. So I think that kind of helped me, and then I've been, so yeah, I was mainly with my development officer, local development officer, that I did most of my communications and helped with that.
That's great. And there's just a question from Cameron to say, what's the one tip to make your ideas into reality, and how motivated were you to do this?
So a top tip is just go for it, just try it, and the worst you can do is it just won't work. I think is a good one. What motivated me was, I suppose, once my internship got cancelled, and I was going to be at home for 6 months, I am big into things like shopping local, trying to eat local produce, and like it's as a way to like reduce your carbon footprint and all that. So I suppose that was a massive motivator for me, to be able to eat local produce and buy stuff from literally within like a kilometre of me, and then also to help local businesses and local communities, and to try and like support the island, because obviously I don't want anyone to be pushed off the island because there's not enough jobs or anything. So I suppose it was handy that the two of them crossed over, so that I could do a bit of climate ambassador-ness stuff, and then also supporting local businesses.
That's great.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I suppose what motivated me was the idea of wanting to do something, and during lockdown I think everyone was in that kind of mindset of trying to find something to do and also keep motivated. So for me it was finding a way that I was still able to be an influencer and get my voice out there and create something of my own, essentially, and wanting to help my industry as a ranger profession. The podcast seemed like the perfect way to do that. And I suppose a top tip would be very much as Treasa said, just do it, essentially. Our two favorite quotes from the Ideas Festival was if not you, who, and I think if not now, when. And I think both of them are very inspiring and good top tip messages. Keep it simple, I always say, and they certainly do that.
That's great, thank you. Just while we're waiting for Sophie to come back, just want to ask, what do you, obviously you guys have attended today, and that's fantastic, but what do we need to do to make get the cafe to grow? Because this is a fantastic opportunity to hear from young people about the ideas that they've had or experiences that they've had, and what do we need to do to bring in friends and new people to join in these conversations and expand the network. I'll just open it out to the floor.
Deadly silence. Just to add to Annabel, so this is the second one we've done. The first one I think some of you were on, which was great, but it's a real core objective of the youth project to try and get more young people in, not just the young people that we've already got hugely passionate and involved, so that we can bring in new ideas for you. So do you think is the different ways we need to be marketing? Do we need to ask you to bring a friend like you do for coffee, a voucher to bring a friend type approach? Is a particular speakers that you think would help? You mentioned international earlier, Luke. Do you think we need to stretch further, or do you think it's better to keep it within the network? Any thoughts would be really helpful.
I think the idea of bringing a friend is a nice one, because it always feels strange joining new webinars by yourself, and you don't really know anyone. You're staring at the screen and you're like kind of nervous to say anything. So I feel like if you had another friend there, at least you'd feel like there's someone else you could even talk to about it afterwards. Would be a big one for me, because I'm always like a bit reluctant to go on new webinars.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Treasa on that one.
I would maybe say, like, with the whole Ideas Festival thing, maybe looking at the ways that you get the message out there for that, even although this is considerably smaller and it's not exactly the same, I feel like this is, in many sense, still an essence of that, and I feel like it still captures the same sort of ideas and inspiration, and actually in a more bite-sized way, and which is a lot more available to everyone essentially. So maybe tapping into whatever makes the Ideas Festival special and marketing and media, and replicating it for this.
Okay, so just on that note, Laura's got a poll to ask when we should host these sessions. So I guess from that point of view, it might be whether it's better to be an evening thing so that people that are working can attend. But I'll let Laura just do the poll. So that should come up.
Sorry, Annabel, my mic was on mute. Yeah, that's up. Especially with the way COVID has went over the past few weeks, obviously things have changed a lot for all of us, I'm sure. So it'd be really great to know if this still suits everyone, or a evening or a midweek afternoon. We're flexible and we want to make this suit for everybody so we can have you all back. So let us know what you think. And that's the results. So possibly a midweek evening, or keep it the way it is. We will have a look at that and get back to everyone. That's such a great help. Thank you all.
I've also got a comment in there just say about tapping into youth groups and forums with organisations, just for expanding the network. I think probably the evening one probably would to make it more accessible for people that are working or can't get the time off to attend this, because it is a fantastic opportunity to hear from inspirational people about their journeys. Also hi to Esme. Hello.
Hiya.
Hi. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask our two speakers? So we have Treasa and Luke.
Because I've just joined, I think I'm okay, but I'm really sorry for being late. I was really looking forward to
No,
it.
that's not a problem at all. That's not a problem.
Arrange something, but yeah, I definitely try and make the next one. I just thought I'd still pop in and.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you do have any questions, you can either ask by mic or in the chat as well. Sophie's back now. I know that she had a few questions to ask, so I'll hand over to Sophie.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I just ran upstairs to make sure that I got the last bit. I had a question for both Luke and Treasa. Luke, I'm making a podcast at the moment as well, so I'm really interested in everything you're doing and how you came up with your idea and making it an international podcast. That's so cool. I was wondering if you scripted your episodes or if you just let the conversation flow naturally and topics come up as they do, because I've been scripting mine and they're a lot of work. So I was wondering what you did about that. And my question to Treasa is, sorry, I'm out of breath. I don't know if I missed it, but how did you go about getting funding? I had to keep popping on and off. I'm so sorry, but when I found projects I was doing, when getting funding for them, I was met with a lot of, oh, you don't know what you're doing, you're too young kind of thing, your idea isn't thought out well enough, or we just don't have the capacity to give a young person, like under the age of 30, the funding that you need for your project. So I was wondering how you went about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll hand over to Luke first.
Yes, so it's an interesting point because I mentioned about the whole difficulty I had with vlogging, and I think majority of that was down to, I feel like as natural as vlogging can be, it's quite good to have prompts and scripts, but I don't work off that at all. I feel like it's like I get a lot of it from my job as being as natural as possible, and a lot of our guided walks are just free flowing. You're not sitting with a script in front of you. So in regards to the podcast, it translated over quite nicely for me. However, mentioning about that, as in the title of the podcast, The Rambling Ranger, I do like to talk, and I do talk a lot of nonsense a lot of the time. So I do have to have some sort of headings or pointers. So what I actually do is before every episode, I tailor the theme or the questions that I want to ask to the guest. So I come up with 10 questions maybe that I want to ask the guest, and I send it over to them so that they can think about it beforehand. And then I just, through the podcast, just work through those questions. And then often we'll go off on tangents, we'll talk about other things, and it allows me to still stick to some agenda, but not being too specific. And it's not obviously like I'm reading off a script. The only thing I suppose that scripted is my intro, but again, it's very loose, and it's just to keep a bit of consistency, and I suppose a bit like the end as well. But no, I think it works really well, and it helps the guests at least as well have a bit of something to think about at the back of their mind whilst they're answering the questions and going through it.
Thanks, Luke. Over to Treasa.
For funding, we got it through SciCap, which is a social development kind of funding. They're funded by Leader and also the Islands Federation, Corlin na Nilon, which we got, I don't know, was it kind of easy because obviously through the Islands Federation there's only whatever 12 offshore islands or something, but I think through the social development we got the majority of the funding, and we're getting funding through them for like signs and stuff. I don't know, was it because I'm the only young person kind of involved in it, which I don't know, did that help or hinder it? Because like obviously it's America, so there was loads of other like adults in their eyes. But yeah, ours was, I think originally it was Leader funding it came from, but through the Islands Federation and SciCap. So that's about all I can help you with. I wasn't the one who actually applied for the funding, and the development officer applied for it, so I couldn't quite help you too much there.
That's great, thanks Treasa. Does anyone else have any questions that they'd like to ask? Nope. Nope. Well, I shall hand back over to Laura.
Thank you, Annabel. Just to say basically everything that Annabel's just said, that was fantastic. Thank you very much, Luke, Treasa, for taking the time to put together your ideas for us, and thank you very much to Annabel for facilitating. I'm sure everyone will agree that you've done a fantastic job of that, and also thank you so much to everyone who has joined us today. Going to hand over to Alana just before we round up. She's got a couple of things just to tell everyone that's coming up, and if you have any ideas or questions, how you can get in touch with us.
Thanks, Laura, and let me express from the Rural Youth Project on behalf of Rebecca and I, like our sincere thanks to all of you to attending, as well as Treasa and Luke for coming on and sharing your stories and how you turned your ideas into something tangible. It's been fantastic to see the journey of it from at the Ideas Festival when we were in freezing cold Lanarkshire to where they are today. It's really awesome to see. And speaking of ideas, at the start of this year, we had planned to host face-to-face big ideas workshops where young people could bring ideas that they had and get help from experts. But we've decided to move that and change it a bit, and we're about to launch the Young Rural Changemakers program, where young people who either want to upskill, get some really great skills in enterprise, in leadership, in communications and community building, they'll get to attend the Young Rural Changemakers program. They can apply to attend, and there'll be every Friday for 5 weeks a 2-hour workshop on each of those themes that I just discussed, and then the attendees will have one-to-one support from each of these people who are experts in their field of leadership, enterprise, communications and community building. So it's a really, really great opportunity for, if you know someone or if you yourself have a project that you're working on, to have really some access to some fantastic people who know how to get projects off the ground, who know how to improve your confidence, and just know how to, I guess, improve the rural areas that we live in, because that's, I guess, the aim of many young people in rural areas. We just want to make it a better place for the future. So we're about to launch that, and that'll be kicking off in October. So you can, I'll put a link in the chat to the website where you can find out all the information and register your interest to attend that. And I think the one other thing I was going to launch, Rebecca and I just wanted to know, since you said that midweek on an evening would work best for you, we just quickly did a poll about what day throughout the week would work best. We're saying around 6:30 in the evening, but would you prefer a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday? Just the more we know, the better it is for us, so we can make sure that as many young people as possible can attend. Just waiting on 2 more. Wednesday it is. Everyone loves the midweek, the very midweek. So hopefully we can kick off that on the downhill into the weekend on a positive note on a Wednesday evening. The next Ideas Cafe will be on the 28th of October, and we'll be sending you all an email because you've attended this one with some details about speakers and how you can join. But again, we'll send an email around after this cafe just with some more details and about how, if you would be interested in joining our Young World Changemakers program, how you can do that. So I'll hand back to Laura if she's got any more final comments.
Thanks, Alana. That sounds brilliant. Just if anyone has any questions or anything, we're always here and happy to help. Just again, thank you so much to Annabel and our 2 speakers and to you all for joining. And we really hope to see you at the next Ideas Cafe. And I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Thanks, everyone. Bye.